Hey guys, what's up? It is week 358. Got a handful of reviews for you, not too much. Maybe a little shorter episode this time around. Recorded a huge video with a great group of guys for the final 1981 video, the final couple. There's a nice little surprise in there too. But yeah, let's hop into the reviews. The first one up is Night of the Blood Monster, aka The Bloody Judge from 1970, directed by Jess Franco, starring, of course, Christopher Lee. Has some other familiar faces in there. Maria Ram, who's Franco regular. So, yeah, this is not my first time watching The Bloody Judge. That's the way I saw it originally, although it was released as Night of the Blood Monster in a PG version, you know, in the States years back. This movie would have been pretty dull in a PG version. So, essentially, you know, in the early 70s, after Witchfinder General 68 with Vincent Price, we had this, like, whole witch-finding, like, craze of movies. In 1970, the biggest one was Mark of the Devil with Herbert Lom and Uday Kier. Great film. But we also had Witchhammer, which is a great foreign film. And we had, Cry of the Banshee, which had some similar things like that. Twins of Evil with Peter Cushing, I think a year later. And we had The Bloody Judge with Christopher Lee. So you kind of have to get all the guys doing this kind of evil, kind of judge, witch hunting kind of stuff. So this one follows Christopher Lee, who's like the king of the judges, right? And he is a harsh man. He is a bitter man. He never witnesses all the executions, the people he condemned, but he condemns a bunch of them. And what's happening is there's kind of an uprising against the king, King James at the time. And one of the kind of lords, I think, son is involved with it. So Christopher Lee kind of gets focused on that, goes after this son and everything like that. And his because he's involved with a girl whose sister was put to death for being a witch, and kind of a scene where she's burned to death in the beginning of the film. So there's some little politics playing behind here, and Lee is a creep. He's excellent in the movie. This is, you know what? Lee has always done a good job. I've never ever looked at Christopher Lee and thought he phoned it in. He's personally one of my favorite actors, and I think that his performance in The Bloody Judge is kind of puts it on the next level. There's some like scummy kind of side characters as well. The guy named Savitt, who basically double traders back and forth. He's very ambitious, and he's a good character in the film. And there's a couple other little, like, kind of sleazy guys in the background. Howard Vernon's in here as basically the main torturer. He's in this little strange outfit, very comical, very bizarre. Kind of a good performance from him, as it always is. He's just always a bizarre, good actor that kind of demand. He has great screen presence, even if the roles don't always give him that much to do. But so the 4K, essentially, rewatching this, I realized that it's a lot better. I liked it in 1970, but it just felt a little dull, a little less horror than it should have been. But rewatching it, it just looks great. I mean, it's photographed really well. This was a Harry Allen Towers produced Jess Franco. That's when there was some money behind it. Think Count Dracula, think Eugenie. There's a lot of movies that are kind of big, you know, and just when Franco had the money, he delivered the goods in one way or another. And sometimes he delivered the goods on a no-budget movie. But yeah, this one, watching this in its 4K with Dolby Vision and all that, it looks spectacular. A lot of the stationary shots, you just see the outdoors, and you're like, wow, this looks so good. I can see every little detail in the backwoods. I can see everything. Yeah, it's a lot of countryside, or wherever they filmed it made it look like English countryside or whatever they were at the time. And this takes place, I mean, there was witch hunting all around the world. The character Jeffries, who is Lee, is based on a true character. If you listen to the commentary by Nathaniel Thompson and Troy Howarth, they go into the multiple releases this movie had, the multiple endings, the different cuts, the different timelines, the actors and actresses, of course, how they feel about them, and then even go into the history of the real character a tad bit. So it's an interesting commentary for an interesting movie. It looks great on 4K. I'm actually enjoying a lot of the 4Ks that Blue Underground is putting out. Actually am. Like, why would I say that? Like I wouldn't be, because they have a lot of great titles. But sometimes, you know, people hear, you know, they're putting out a Franco movie on 4K. They're like, well, we want Death Dream, which is coming, or we want, you know, Inferno. But these movies, you gotta see them in a prestige kind of copy to like really understand that these are really well photographed movies. These are well done films. They have good cast. They have good everything. And I only saw this on a DVD, and the Blue Underground DVD, it's fine, but it ain't 4K, I'll tell you that much. And it didn't even have a Blu-ray in the States, so it's a big upgrade. As far as the special features are concerned, we of course have Dolby Vision. We have a longest version of this one, although it's not. There's different alternate stuff and closed versions, but it's an hour, and it's basically like 1:43. minutes long. We have 3 audio commentaries. First one, Troy Harworth and Nathaniel Thompson. Then we have one with Kim Newman and Barry Forshaw. And then we have one with David Flint and Adrian Smith. On the second disc, which is Blu-ray, we have all those commentaries, but we have Bloody Jess, interviews with Jess Franco and star Christopher Lee, which I believe was on the DVD. Judgment Day, interview with Stephen Thrower, author of Murderous Passions, did Delirious Cinema of Jess Franco. In the Shadows, interview with filmmaker Alan Birkinshaw and author Stephen Thrower on Harry Allen Towers. Deleted and altered scenes, trailers and TV spots, and still galleries. So overall, this is a really solid kind of Witchfinder, kind of hunter movie. If you know, I don't think it's as good as Witchfinder General or Mark of the Devil, but it's up, or Twins of Evil or Witchhammer. It's kind of, that's bad to say that it's not the worst of them, of those it is, but it's still good. And a lot of that is because of the performance from Christopher Lee and his realization at the end of the film. Just a great actor, great performance, and I don't know if I prefer Lee as a villain or in a heroic role. He does a good job every time. I love him in The Gorgon. I think The Gorgon is one of his underrated performances. He seems so alive in that and just so kind of energetic and just fun, and I really like him in that. This one, he's very stern and evil and just overall asshole. Like, he does have a slight realization at the end, but it's just not quite enough. Like Troy says, he's still a jerk. Yeah, Night of the Blood Monster, a.k.a. The Bloody Judge. Okay, the next one here is from Film Masters, and this is from 1960 by Bert R. Gordon, a.k.a. Mr. Big. He directed a lot of those kind of giant people, giant killer animal movies. He did Food of the Gods, of course, which everyone knows. But this is Tormented, yes. And I had not seen this one. I actually had never really heard of this one. And although it's not a film noir, it's a ghost story, it kind of feels like a little bit of noirish in there. The actor that I knew right away, right when I saw him in the credits, was Joe Turkel. Of course, everybody knows him from The Shining and a couple other Stanley Kubrick movies as well. So this is a black and white kind of cheap film, but it's well done. It's more, I guess you would say, when you think of his other movies, Bert I. Gordon, they kind of hammer this over your head in the special features here. You think of like sci-fi B movies, and this is a very adult storyline for Bert I. Gordon. And not saying that he couldn't make adult storylines. He certainly could. But Tormented, it follows a story of, I guess he's some sort of lifeguard musician. I don't know. He's always at the lifeguard tower, but he's a jazz musician, and he is, in the very beginning, he's arguing with this beautiful woman, and she's like, no one will ever love you, and they're just getting into it, and it appears that some sort of a lover's quarrel, maybe an affair, and they're in the White House tower, and she leans back and she's ready to fall, and instead of helping her, he lets her drop to her death, and he starts the rest of the movie convincing himself that he did nothing wrong. Because he's getting ready to marry somebody who's from a well-off family, who's the love of his life, and this woman was holding it over his head that he possibly had this affair. So, good riddance. But it's not going to be that simple, of course. He starts to hear sounds, he starts to see footprints in the sand, and he starts to kind of hallucinate bodies washing up on shore, but they're really just big piles of seaweed. One of the most iconic scenes, I guess, would be the talking head, which is a mannequin head, but he imagines it's a real head, and he's kind of going crazy. This guy's performance is pretty solid, but the end of the movie, of course, there's going to be some more twists and everything, and just desserts by the end of the film. It's definitely that kind of movie. But Joe Turkel enters the film as kind of a drifter that gave this woman a ride, and he says she never came back, so he's asking for tons and tons of money. So he's put in between a rock and a hard spot, and at the end it gets pretty exciting when he might have to put somebody else over that ledge. But is he going to do it? Who knows? But yeah, it's a very satisfying kind of little small thriller picture, horror picture, ghost story that I enjoyed. As far as the special features are concerned, we have Mystery Science Theater 3000 version of Tormented from 92, Bert I. Gordon, the amazing colossal filmmaker, and archival interview with writer, director, producer Bert I. Gordon, Bigger Than Life, Bert I. Gordon in the 1950s and 60s, a Ballyhoo motion picture documentary featuring C. Courtney Joyner. Those are always great. Does a lot of information, does his whole career. Video essay by the Flying Machiste Brothers, The Spirit is Willing, Cinemagic and Social Discord, and Bert I. Gordon's Tormented. 1961 unreleased TV pilot of famous ghost stories featuring Vincent Price, original raw 35mm Tormented trailer scanned in 4K, and the 2024 recut trailer made with restored film elements. Full commentary track by history writer, filmmaker Gary Rhodes with guest Larry Abelmayer, and full color booklet insert with essays by film historian Tom Weaver and novelist filmmaker John Woolley. And Tom Weaver is one of these guys that interviewed tons and tons of people and recorded a lot of stuff on phone conversations, so he has access to tons of information that no one else has. So these people know their stuff. It's a good release of a solid movie that I'd never heard of, and it's good to watch these kind of ones. So yeah, good stuff. Tormented. Okay, the next one up is from Epic Pictures, and this is a newer one, and this is Double Blind. Yeah, so Double Blind. This stars Pollyanna McIntosh is the first name that I would recognize. It's got to be her. I haven't seen her in a while, but she's an excellent actress. She's in, of course, The Woman and the sequel to The Woman, Darling, and Offspring. She's in all three of the film versions of the Jack Ketchum books. But Darling, I don't think was a book, but based off the same characters. Anyways, she was in The Walking Dead. Double Blind follows a story of a group of kind of misfits, people that need a lot of money, so they sign up to an experiment, but it's a double-blind experiment, so they don't really know what they're getting, and even the doctor's not 100% sure what's placebo, what's not. All that kind of stuff is, I'd assume, double-blind. So before long, they start taking the medicine. We follow our main characters. There's 7 of them. They all kind of are established and everything like that. Our main character obviously seems like she's going through a lot of problems, and of course there's going to be a reveal. There's backstories about all these characters, who they are as the film progresses. It's not overly annoying. It doesn't hit you over the head with it. It's not like, hey, stop, listen to all this. It's very natural, and that's a good point to the film. But you know something's going to go wrong. And before long, the people realize that they're no longer tired, and their brain activity is through the roof. There is a medical student who signed up for this trial, and he starts to piece this together and realize something's not wrong. At one point, they shut the whole thing down, and everybody's going to be trapped in here for 5 days. They realize they need to stay up, or they're going to have tragic consequences afterwards. So that's essentially, you know, like all horror movies where you can't fall asleep or you're dead. Think Invasion of the Body Snatchers. Think A Nightmare on Elm Street. The idea that you can't sleep or you're in trouble is absolutely terrifying. I mean, it goes back to standing guard, right? Somebody's got to stand guard all the time. Or in movies and war, somebody's got to be up. If you fall asleep, it could be the end of you. So these people start to hallucinate. They start to turn against each other in typical fashion, trying to figure a way to get the hell out of this room. So Double Blind, I would recommend. I think it's pretty good. I think that the special effects are solid. I think the characters are solid. All around, the hallucinatory scenes are solid. This is a pretty good one, you know, Double Blind. I would recommend it. I like the ending. Overall, Double Blind is good stuff. And for a newer film, you know, I'm not the biggest fan of new horror films all the time, although I do love some. I don't have the affinity for them as I do a lot of older films, but I try to be fair with everything, and I like this one. This is a good film. I think a lot of people will enjoy it. Medical Experiments Gone Wrong. I like that subgenre for sure. All right, I know what you're thinking. This is going to be the first 1982 movie. And I still am finishing up 81, so I'm just going to roll the 82 opening. I'm not going to roll the 81 opening because there's one after this.
I know I'm human. If you were all these things, then you just attack me right now. So some of you are still human. This thing doesn't want to show itself. It wants to hide inside an imitation. It'll fight if it has to. But it's vulnerable out in the open. If it takes us over, then it has no more enemies. Nobody left to kill it. And then it's won.
You son of a bitch, you moved the cemetery, but you left the bodies, didn't you? You son of a bitch, you left the bodies and you only moved the headstones! You only moved the headstones! Why? Why?
For a girl like you to come into my life, I've been waiting for a girl like you, who love and will survive. I've been waiting, someone new to make me feel alive. Yeah, waiting for a girl like you to come into my life.
You bitch! You called me a bitch!
rats in a basket.
How do we know she is alive?
Say, please stop it. There's no more time. You've got to. Please stop it. Stop it now. Turn it off. Turn it off. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop it. Stop
So basically, this is going to be Mondo Macabro's release of Special Silencers, the Indonesian flick. Who directed this one? I know that directed by Arizal. I'm sure that they did. I forgot to look it up what else they did. There's like 5 or 6 of these kind of Indonesian horror directors that do a handful of these. So this one was on my radar. I know that Explosive Action said you got to check out Special Silencers. It's insane. And the Indonesian movies that I watched from 1981 are pretty wild. And before, Satan's Slave, Queen of Black Magic, Mystics in Bali, Ghost with Hole. These movies are wild and different and unique, and this one here, Special Silencers, is no different. It's a part martial arts film, part kind of mystic horror film. So what we have here is Barry Prima, who's pretty much the biggest star in these Indonesian horror flicks, knows a lot of martial arts stuff, or he is a martial artist in the movies and whoops a lot of ass. So what we have here is this old kind of crooked man that wants to be the mayor, and he's got to eliminate the mayor to be that, but he also wants to take out the mayor's daughter and some other people in the process. We see his flashback in the beginning and how he has this special power, the special power of the Special Silencers. And he's a no good piece of shit. He actually killed somebody who was in his family. So what he does is he slips something into the food, and these Special Silencers will cause tree branches or little trees to grow out of people. They do this effect 5 or 6 times. It's pretty gnarly. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty gross. But welcome. And that's probably the biggest part of the horror aspect in here. There's a lot of snake play, people throwing snakes on people. But a lot of the film is essentially them trying to catch Barry Prima and the mayor's daughter. And they're throwing snakes at him. They're throwing nets at them. And he kind of escapes or fights, and there is some stunts. They at one point circle the entire him in fire, and he drives through a motorcycle. So it's more action than horror, but there are the horror aspects there, and the whole kind of mysticism is there as well. It's weird, and it does I always think Indonesian flicks feel like part Indian films and part Hong Kong films, and they just kind of meet right in the middle there. And I'm like, these movies are so weird and different. They have a lot of that kind of martial arts stuff, or people coming at you with blades, because it's not as prevalent for everybody to be carrying guns in different countries in America. That's why American action films are so different from a lot of other countries. In the UK or in Indonesia or Hong Kong, usually guys are coming at you with blades or weapons. In America, they just shoot you. And everything. So this one has some crazy fight scenes, some wild stuff, and some gore. Special Silencers is pretty good. I enjoyed this one. Like I said, that stuff right there is just one of those gnarly scenes that you're have to see to believe. As far as the special features are concerned, we have Mondo Macabre episode in Indonesian cinema. That's pretty cool. That's about 25 minutes long. Has a lot of the key players involved with the cinema, directors, actors talking about it, talking about how they had a big horror kind of output and everything like that. Then we have audio commentary by Andrew Levold, Indonesian English audio choice, and optional English subtitles. Great release from Mondo Macabro, one that I don't think anyone else would have put out. I mean, they put out so much good stuff. Mondo, again, I will say, is probably them and Kino are the most underrated of the sub-labels. I mean, I love a lot of the big ones, Arrow, Vinegar Syndrome, Severin, those I adore. But I do, Synapse, I feel like Mondo and Kino, especially Mondo, man, because their output is so interesting. They take the movies that they might not get released anywhere else, legit. So there's some that I saw that they put out and was I don't really know what that is. And that doesn't happen very often, but Special Silencers, 1982, first one from 1982, we're diving in. Good stuff. Indonesian horror flick, horror action fantasy flick. Okay, we're not going to roll the 1981 after we did the 1982. That's overkill, but this is the last movie I'm talking about from 1981. This is Killing at Hell's Gate. Now, this is kind of more of a TV film, Deliverance ripoff than a horror film, but, I'm big into the Deliverance kind of style films, Hunter's Blood, Rituals, Deliverance itself, so Just Before Dawn. I'm a big fan of Hicksploitation, if it's a horror movie or not, so this one I felt kind of leaned into it a bit. Robert Aldrich is this kind of guy who came from, he's basically in the political world now. He's moved moved on up, and he's going back to his hometown for a canoe ride. They ask him, hey, if you want this favor, you got to take this politician who's running for re-election back to that area with you. Give him a canoe ride with his secretary and everything like that. You can take your buddy and his kind of girlfriend who's a guide, all this kind of stuff, and they're going to go on this big canoe ride. But this guy, this politician, essentially voted to preserve the forest, which got a bunch of people's jobs lost. So there's some good old boys that know Ulrich, and they do not like him. And they do not like this politician. So when they find out they're going to lose their job, they kind of go in the woods and get real drunk, and they have enough booze to last them a while. But what they see is a canoe going by on this whitewater rafting, a canoe like raft thing. And a couple of the guys are like, hey, let's shoot at him. Let's sink that raft. One of them is Brian James, character actor, also from Southern Comfort this year. He's in 48 Hours. He's in Blade Runner. He's in Horse Show. One of the great character actors of his time, unfortunately dead too soon. But in this one, he steals the show. His name is Turkey, and he is, without a doubt, the scariest of the three, the most trash of the three, and just the most memorable of the three. So they start shooting these rafts, and what happens is they accidentally kill the politician, and they realize, these guys know who we are. We got to kill them all. So it kind of turns this group of people to survival against this group of kind of like good old boys against their old rival and everything like that. But no, it's well acted. It's a good survival film, especially for a TV film. But I have to admit, Brian James steals the fucking show. The guy who plays Sam is also really good. The main goon, he's really solid and sleazy. But Turkey, Brian James' character, it just lights the film up. You know what, man? You don't realize how good Brian James is until you see him in a movie, and you're just like, yeah, I was so excited to see him. He just comes in looking like a creep, man, and just being such trashy kind of guy. You know, I always felt like he would have played the perfect Joel Rifkin, the serial killer, because they look a lot alike, and I was just like, if the time would have matched up, I'd be like, man, Joel Rifkin played by Brian James. Brian James is, like I said, like he didn't really get the credit he deserved. I mean, he's so good in Crime Wave as well. He laughs that weird laugh, and just an underrated actor, and great performance in this movie for a little movie that I don't think many people have seen. Killing at Hell's Gate, good film. If you like Deliverance and you like them a little cheaper and TV movie, then check out it. It's pretty good. Okay, we're going to get into the Patreon pick, and I can't remember who picked this, but it is Three Women by Robert Altman, 1977, if I'm not mistaken. And, you know, I'd never seen this. I know it's a Criterion release. I know Robert Altman is very popular. I've seen a handful of his films, and I've enjoyed all of them. You know, I'm just not the biggest expert on Robert Altman. I'm the biggest expert on anything, but I love film. So I put this in. It has Sissy Spacek and, of course, Shelley Duvall in it. Kind of two of the most oddest actresses of the 70s in terms of just not being your typical look of, a leading actress. And I love that. They used to do that a lot in the 70s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. There were just people that weren't typical looking, atypical actors and actresses, and they got to lead in films, and they were always exceptional. Sissy Spacek from Badlands to Carrie has never disappointed me. Shelley Duvall in The Shining is just one of the best all-time great performances in a horror film. So I'm looking at these two, and it's just such an interesting kind of look. So Sissy Spacek is new in this job, and she kind of goes directly towards Shelley Duvall. Shelley Duvall is this, they're basically helping in this old folks home. They're not nurses, they're just helpers or whatever, I believe. So like they'll help old people kind of do their thing and everything like that. And right away Sissy Spacek is drawn to Shelley Duvall, and Shelley Duvall is such a bizarre, weird character. And you see her try to interact with people, and everybody ignores her, and it's just really kind of heartbreaking and sad. They just kind of treat her very poorly, and then when you turn around, Shelley Duvall starts to treat Sissy Spacek really poorly, and at one point in the film, there's an artist that is a big part of the film either. That's the third woman here that stays at this hotel with her husband Edgar, who's this kind of old, kind of country, like stuntman guy who's really funny, but also not so funny as the film progresses. But yeah, at one point in the movie, somebody suffers a severe injury, and it's really scary to see what happens when somebody has a head injury, how completely different their personality can change for a short period or a long period of time, and how different the movie gets, because the movie is very real life, very matter of fact, very everyday kind of stuff here, and just seems very grounded and realistic. But at one point when somebody has this injury, they start to hallucinate, and we see almost like a horror thing here, and it's definitely kind of following in the steps of Robert Altman's Images from 1972, where the whole movie is kind of a schizophrenic, horrible, nightmare, and this has that little glimpse of it right here, and it really works well. Overall, I think Little Women is a really exceptionally well acted film, and the way it ends, you kind of get the title. But yeah, I don't have that much to say about it, but it was just really kind of realistic and a slice of life in a weird kind of way about some kind of bizarre characters and how things change. That is Three Women. Good stuff. All right, let's get these questions, comments, concerns. Kentuckinator, vintage Mrparka energy this week. Beguiled was a recent watch for me too. Wonderful film, and R.I.P. that turtle. R.I.P. that turtle indeed. Turtle Heaven, that was the AK name to Premonition from 1976 with Richard Lynch. So maybe it should have been the alternate name for Beguiled. Ilk Vomit, 88, just here to type up Godzilla -1 winning the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. Sure, it took 70 years, but Godzilla is now Academy Award-winning franchise. Love it. Beyond 55, Ringu is amazing and deserves its accolades. Have the 4K and it's great. Yeah, Ringu is exceptional. Carly's YouTube channel. I got Plank Face as a Horror Pack exclusive years back. Think it was exclusive number 17. That's crazy. Subjective Perspective Collective. Never thought of Mommy Dearest as a horror movie, but yeah, definitely it is. Especially that scene where her night mask on and screaming, "No wire hangers." Man, that scene is burned in from my childhood. Great reviews as always, brother. Thank you. Detective Gumshoe. Looking at that tank top respectively. Thank you. I always wear the tank tops. It's just... I sweat otherwise at this point in my life. I'm getting old. Stephen Amos, Fire, thank you. Kadam, I believe that Caligula lead actors were mortified. They didn't know about the porno parts. Oh, yeah, I believe that is true as well. Sultry tank top smile. Okay. Stephen Hyde gives me a fire. Nick Mua from Belgium. Even though I really dug the remake of Walter Salas's Phenomenon, Jennifer Connelly. Oh, he's talking about the remake of Dark Water. The original Dark Water is quite a journey, perhaps not breezy one, but worthwhile nonetheless. This re-release looks very appealing indeed. Prior to Caligula, I didn't know that there was such a thing as historical porno, that it spawned so many imitations. Guess art isn't always original, right? Yeah, I guess not. Had you been alive at the time, would you have wanted to appear in Caligula or any of the following up imitations? I would have definitely been in Caligula if they asked. Which version of War of the Worlds is your favorite? To believe it or not, I don't think I've ever seen the original version. I've read the book and I've seen the 2005 version, but I look forward to watching the original on 4K. Do the Oscars have any influence on which movies you choose to watch? In my case, the answer is no. Not the new ones, no. I don't keep up on new movies, but if I know a movie's an Oscar winner, it adds some sort of, credentials to it, obviously. Till next week, loving the sultry tank top. Everybody's just using that word sultry tank top. Maybe that was... They didn't say that. Maybe I accidentally got a comment wrong. Maybe that Caden person didn't say that, and it was his. Whatever, it's mixed up. Ken Coakley, I can't believe you reviewed The Shootist. I've been watching it over and over in the past month. I saw it at my childhood movie theater. Every time John Wayne had a movie out, my family would go see it. I love the beginning with the stock footage from his earlier films. Originally, Clint Eastwood was going to star, then Charles Bronson. But this film was way to cap off a great career. John Wayne also had facial hair in Rio Grande. I loved William McKinney as the big mouth who was trying to brainwash Ron Howard. I remember McKinney from Angel on Chain, Deliverance, Squeal Like a Pig. Rick Lenz, he's also in Junior Bonner. Rick Lenz, who played the writer who wanted to write the book that would smear his character, was also in Cactus Flower with Goldie Hawn. I always thought Lenz looked like and sounded like young James Stewart. I thought he played Stewart's son in this film. It was great seeing Richard Boone in another John Wayne movie. He played the villain who kidnapped John Wayne's grandson in Big Jake, which I saw at the drive-in with True Grit when I was 7. I also watched The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance the other day. I love that movie, and it's my top 5 of John Wayne films. Stewart was great in this, especially when it demands that they bury Dauphin with his boots on. As for Wayne's politics, his politics almost didn't get him cast in the Cowboys, but he promised the director that he wouldn't talk politics. His co-star Roscoe Lee Brown had different politics from Wayne, but they found out they were both poetry fans, so they talked about poetry during downtime. In regard to Frankenstein Unbound, I watched it when it first came out on video because I'm a huge Rod Julia fan. I saw a documentary about him, and they mentioned that he was originally cast as the lead in Desperado. He obviously got replaced by Antonio Banderas. Unfortunate what happened to poor Rod Julia. Excellent actor, lit up every movie he was in. But I guess we're going to get into that update now. Oops, I made a mistake, guys. We're going to do the Patreon drawing real quick. Let's see what we got here. 5 names coming out. What do I got? We got 2 here. Oop, Brian Nielsen, This Night I'll Possess Your Corpse. Sorry, I already did that one. So, Jim Simon, Clint Eastwood movie of your choice. I'm going to do 4 more. We got Jason Willard, Righting Wrongs. Okay. Dan the Cameraman, The Cincinnati Kid. We can do that. Some Steve McQueen. And then we got, what do we got there? 1, 2, 3. We got 2 more. We got them here. Oh, I got 3 more. We're going to do all 3 of them. Travis Linscomb, City of the Dead with Christopher Lee. We just did one of his. And we have Chris Rivers. My October pick is Alapazuza. I think I did that one already, so we'll disregard that. That's the one with Jeremy Irons, the Western, right? And what we have here, Shark movie of your choice, Tom Brooker. There we go. Good list of things here. If that Alapazuza movie is the one I didn't do, I'll do that one as well. But yeah, let's get in that update. All right, let's get in this update. Got a big order from TerraVision here. First up is Lost in the 80s, the Joe Zaso collection. I think there's like 4 or 5 movies on here. We have It's Only a Movie, Maligno, Scream Book 1, and Scream Book 2, the next issue. Very cool. I do like a lot of the stuff that TerraVision's putting out. A lot of fun stuff here. Then we have Door. This is a Japanese horror flick, which I don't know much about. Looked interesting, though. Heard only good things. So, Door. All these have slip covers, obviously. But, yeah. Very cool. Different cover there as well. Next up is Slashers! Love this movie. Been a huge fan of this movie for years. One of the underrated horror films made in a time when horror films just weren't really that appealing to me. Made in 2001, man. So, you know, not a great year, but this is one of my all-time favorites from the year. And I think there's a longer version of this movie on here, which I didn't even know about. This director also did an excellent movie called End of the Line. Another totally underrated movie. This guy's got 2 great movies. I never saw his other one, Lady of the Lake, but... Then we have Blood Car, which is another movie I loved when it came out. Very funny about cars being run on blood. Very cute movie. Would recommend for sure. I'm a vegan. It's been a long time since I've watched it, but the first time I saw this movie, I laughed hysterically. Hopefully it holds up, you know. They're putting out movies that are either ones that I've always wanted to see or movies from a time and place that I genuinely loved when I didn't love that much stuff. So then we have The Jar, which is a movie I had seen on VHS, and I didn't love it, but I always loved the cover, and seeing it remastered might bring some life to this thing because it was very bizarre and different. It's just, you know, maybe the image quality was so poor that I really couldn't check it out, get a good look at it. But this cover art, the original cover art to The Jar, always haunted me, man. Seeing like creatures in jars was just such a perfect idea for a horror film or a horror cover. And then we have Hollow Gate, City Lights release, originally on VHS. This movie's nonsense. I remember it being a crazy slasher film. But yeah, this should be a fun rewatch on Blu-ray. I know that I think the elements were lost and it was scanned on an SD Master, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, this one is super weird, super bizarre, goofy slasher movie. Enjoyable. I think I do have the VHS of it. Next up, we have, might as well do the other City Lights here. We have the Newlydeads, which I think is an SD Master as well. This movie looked absolutely ridiculous. You know, I have the old Trauma DVD, but I never watched it, like the 3-pack. And then I saw the trailer for this, and I was like, what is that, man? That looks like a fucking blast. It looks cheap, it looks fun, it looks silly. The Newlydeads. You know, there's still always movies that you have or you know a little bit about, but you don't really know that much about. So then when they get a nice release, you're like, oh, I guess I will watch that now. So then we have Woodchipper Massacre, right? The John McBride classic SOV film. You know, I don't think I've ever watched the Woodchipper Massacre. I just hit the sound mic's going to be terrible there. But yeah, I don't think I've ever seen it. That's kind of a bad confession on my part, you know? It's like the biggest SOV movie of all of them. One of them, for sure, and I never seen Woodchipper Massacre. That's my biggest SOV blind spot right there. Next up, we have Hell's Highway. I heard this is a gory good time. So, yeah, Jeff Leroy. I know that he's done some pretty crazy movies. 4 College Friends on One Hitchhiker. The Road Trip to Hell. You're riding shotgun. Yeah, but this movie's supposed to be pretty gory, pretty wild. I think I had a DVD, but I never did see it. And last up is actually a DVD, and this is from the Sick on Cinema boys. John and Matt put this bad boy out. Short Shits. So this is actually a bunch of shorts that was made by them years and years ago. So check it out. I'll put a link below. And it's 2 discs on here. Very cool. Love the Sick on Cinema guys. Great guys. So yeah, great podcast. But anyways, we're getting out of here. All right, guys. Thank you very much for watching. And as always, have a good one.